Hi, welcome to the Completed Ticket Challenge. This is a video for week 1, day 2. So yesterday you made a Kanban board, and I hope that really helped you with the visibility that you have into your work. And now you can see what stage everything is at, and see what you have in progress and what's coming up, and so on, and in a much better way than you can see in your PSA. Now, however, I wouldn't blame you if you looked at that Kanban board and thought, well, this is still pretty overwhelming. And that's could be because I haven't given you the tools to use to make a large board more manageable. So the tool that we do for that is Swimlanes. What's a swim lane? Well, it's just a way to group tickets by something that is useful for whatever purpose you're looking at that board for. So, for example, if you're a manager, you generally it's useful to see how the tickets are assigned to the members. So you want to see them in groups by who the ticket's assigned to. That's a swim lane that we can make, and it makes it very clear to see how your how your tickets are distributed in your team. So that's what you're going to do today. You're going to make a couple of types of swim lane boards, depending on how you're doing your work. So the most frequently used type of swim lane board is the member swim lane. And so go to the board that you made yesterday. Just go down to the bottom. There's a little button called Actions, and in there's a clone option. So you're just going to clone the board that you made yesterday and go edit it and change the swim lane option to Resources. And there you go. Now you've got a board that shows the tickets as they're assigned to the different members, including tickets that aren't assigned to anybody. That's usually pretty useful to see as well. Now, if you're doing project work, you're going to do a second type of swim lane board. You're going to just clone the board again and change it to a swim lane by project option. And now you're going to get swim lanes that are one swim lane for each project. And within each swim lane, you're going to see the individual tickets or tasks for that project. And that's a really powerful view because now you can see all of the work that your team is doing by the different project. Um, and you can see, if we focus on one project this week by doing these specific tasks, what are the tasks that we're going to have to delay for some of the other projects? And to get that kind of visibility into the work in just your PSA, it takes a lot of time, but in Kanban, it's very, very easy. So those are the two swim lane boards that you need to make, or one if you're doing service-oriented work. And they're really useful for, in these cases, one, basically anything that you're doing as a manager, because frequently you need to see how the work is distributed by your different team members. Also, if you're a dispatcher, very useful, and also for your team huddles. So if you're not doing huddles yet, don't worry, we're going to start that next week. But any sort of team meeting where you talk about the individual tickets that you're doing, you probably want to see them by how they're assigned to the member. Now, for the case where for thinking about how technicians want to use Kanban, they may not want to use a swim lane board. Here's a little trick. You can show them the work, just the work that they're assigned to. If they go to the board that has no swim lanes, the one you created yesterday, and just click on the filters button in the main menu, there they can apply themselves as the resource filter, and then they'll only see tickets that they're assigned to. They won't be distracted with all the other things, and they won't even see it in the swim lanes. Now they can still apply that filter if it's like, for example, the project swim lane board, and then they'll see it by the project swim lanes, and sometimes that's still useful. Now, when you apply the filters like that, be aware that actually changes the URL of the board, which means that you can set that as a bookmark in your browser or maybe a pinned tab in your browser. So make sure your technicians know about that because that's super useful for returning to those boards very quickly with the filters applied. A little tip, if you are talking about service work and you're using a dispatch a method where there's really no dispatch procedure. Basically, a customer enters a ticket, it goes into the new status, and then technicians just take work from the new status on their own. Then they may find it useful to use not use the board with no swim lanes. They may want to use the member swim lane board, but still apply themselves as the filter, as well as select the option for showing unassigned tickets. And then what they'll see is a board with Swimlane for unassigned work at the top, which will have all of the new work on the left side of the board. And so they can get a good view of what's unassigned right now and new stuff that's come in. That's theirs for the taking. And then they'll have a Swimlane below that with their own work. So they can get in one view, they can see the two things that they're responsible for, their own assigned work, as well as new work that's come in that still needs to be claimed. Now, finally, a little word on bottlenecks. You may have heard the term bottlenecks used in with regard to Kanban and lean practices and whatnot. So a bottleneck in terms of looking at your pipeline and your workflows, that's just, where does the work build up? That's the one spot in your workflow that really limits your team's throughput. Very frequently, the bottleneck in a team is a member. Um, Frequently it's your most senior members because they're working on the most projects. They're kind of consulting on all different sorts of things, and they're frequently the ones that have the biggest queue of work, and the most things started. So you may not have had visibility into that with just your PSA tool, but the member swim option in Kanban really makes that visible. So and that's really important to have, because once you see it, then you can apply some techniques to start addressing that, such as better training for your other, your more junior members so that they can take more of that work, or better documentation so the junior members can take some of that work, or maybe hiring a new senior person is the right answer for you. But at least now you have that visibility.